Welcome to Ipob Rapture Media. Indigenous peoples in Nigeria should stand up against Fulani jihad threats. Ipob press statement, the 28th of January 2024. The global family and movement of the indigenous people of Biafra, Ipob, ably led by the great and indefatigable leader Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, is alarmed by the national jihad threats from Fulani nationalist movement, FUNAM. We call on the indigenous peoples in Nigeria to rise up and defend themselves against the Fulani jihadist movement. No one has a monopoly of violence. In a viral message going around the social media, Fulani nationalist movement, FUNAM, has issued a threat to launch a murderous jihad against the citizens of the Middle Belt, Southeast, South and Southwest Nigeria in retaliation against the detention of their leader by the Nigerian government and her lawless DSS. We want to inform FUNAM that they cannot threaten the indigenous Nigerians to silence. If they can threaten other nationalities to silence, definitely not Biafrans. They should remember that they are not indigenous to Nigeria and can't use violence or terrorism to conquer the indigenous peoples in Nigeria. They may have succeeded in some parts of Nigeria in the past, but not anymore. As for us Biafrans, they will never take any inch of our land as long as Ipob and ESN are still around. We are ready to face them fire for fire and tit for tat. The FUNAM should know how to address national issues without threatening all the ethnic groups. No tribe has a monopoly on violence. For the Fulani jihadist movement to threaten to unleash mayhem on other tribes in Nigeria over the arrest of their leader, and any arrest of a Fulani shows their arrogance and superiority over the laws and constitution of the contraption called Nigeria. Fulanis have gotten away with all their violence, mass killings and mass kidnappings in Nigeria. They have been emboldened by the federal government's funding and tacit support from the Nigeria security agencies. The Nigerian security forces are busy disarming the defense of other nationalities so that they can't defend themselves against the Fulani terrorists and jihadists' invasion. Even as the people of Plateau State are being massacred, the compromised Nigerian military are busy going house to house searching and taking away any form of defense from Plateau people and leaving them helpless to the marauding Fulanis to massacre them. The tacit support that Fulani terrorists enjoy from the Nigeria military and other security forces is what motivates them to kill and massacre with impunity. The tacit support the Fulanis enjoy from the military is what motivated this latest threat to launch a national jihad against indigenous peoples in Nigeria. We are waiting for them in Biafra land. If FUNAM have issues with the arrest and detention of their leader by the lawless DSS and the Nigeria government, they should face them legally and not to threaten war and jihad on other Nigerians. It is obvious that they are either working with the Nigerian government to launch the nationwide jihad they have been preparing for since 2017. Maybe they have mobilized enough funds from kidnapping and ransom payments and have acquired sufficient arms and ammunition to launch their age-long agenda of jihad across the Niger. Their agenda is dead on arrival. Ipob ESN operatives dare FUNAM terrorists and jihadist movement to launch their agenda and receive the shock of their lives. Ipob and ESN are ready to defend Biafran territories from terrorists and jihadists. Ipob is not begging Fulanis not to start their jihad, but they must be ready to finish what they start. Ipob calls on the federal government of Nigeria under President Tinubu, the state governors in the south, and all the traditional southern organizations not to take the threats from FUNAM for granted. They should mobilize and arm their citizens to face the terrorists and jihadists whose agenda is to kill, dislodge, and take over indigenous people's lands. This is not the time for politics, but a time to defend ourselves from Fulani conquest agendists. We equally call on the Nigeria security agencies to be responsible in discharging their constitutional duties. They should arrest the FUNAM jihadists who have taken responsibility for the previous and current massacres in the Middle Belt and in other parts of Nigeria, and for their threats to launch a national jihad. The security agencies should do their job, or stay neutral in the event the FUNAM carries out their threats or be treated by indigenous peoples of Nigeria as part of the jihadists. Once again, we are calling for renegotiation and division of Nigeria to avoid the impending implosion of the country. The indigenous peoples of Hausa, Oduduwa and Middle Belt should brace up and defend their territories. As for Biafra territory, it is a no-go area for any Fulanization conquest. Biafrans must volunteer information and support IPOB-ESN to defend our territory against jihadists and terrorist attacks that are about to happen. Comrade Emma, Powerful Media and Publicity Secretary for Ipob.